Welcome, everybody. Happy Monday. It is a reaction Monday. Football, pro, and college underway this weekend. I'm Sean Drotar. That is Nate Lundy. Nate, of course, will start with the Denver Broncos, who end up losing their season opener 26-20 in Seattle. Folks in Vegas know what they're talking about when they put the line at Seahawks.
Yeah, because everybody in Vegas apparently knew there were going to be two safeties.
Right. Two safeties for the Broncos in the second quarter. First time the Broncos have had two safeties since 1982. And the first time in a quarter that a team has had two safeties since at the best 1960, because prior to that they weren't even calculating the stats, so that may never have happened. And all of that, good luck. Despite all that, the Broncos getting an early turnover. The Seahawks first two plays, a sack and then an interception.
Oh, and a sack by who?
Jonathan Cooper.
And who did I tell you to bet on? Jonathan Cooper. First play of the game we cashed, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep, same thing. And by the way, I got that Saquon Barkley one, first touchdown too. So we'll get back to those a little later. But anyway, the Broncos could not stand the good luck, apparently, because they start off right off the bat. They end up settling for three. They have the slips. It just couldn't get going for the offense. And there's a combination of the play calling and the offense involved in there too. The defense, I thought, was very, very good for the most part. They kind of ran out of gas in the second half. But in the end, the Seahawks won by 6, what more or less everyone expected to see. Right. Is anything really surprise you, Nate, that happened, good or bad?
No, I don't think so. I was impressed by the play of the defense. They obviously ran out of gas. I mean, that's just all there is to it. They got tired.
Yeah.
And I thought they looked pretty good up until that point. DK Metcalf is a good wide receiver. I don't want to take anything away from him. But I frankly was a little bit surprised that Seattle said, all right, we're going to go after Pat Surtain. They threw his way numerous times. As opposed to what we talked about on Friday of, are they going to try to pick on Riley Moss? Are they going to try to go to the other side of the field? And instead they went after Surtain, and he had some good plays. But Seattle tried to attack him. And I think that was, frankly, pretty damn interesting that they did that.
Metcalf with 3 catches for 29 yards on 4
So
targets.
Obviously not a lot, but they were going
But they were not afraid to go there. And I mean, I get it. If you have DK Metcalf, you can't just ignore him for the day. And the Broncos did the right thing. They didn't bother with one of those, the idea where he'll just play on this side in all but one of the snaps in which DK Metcalf was out there on the field. Surtain was on him. So the Broncos and Vance Joseph assigned Surtain to go shut down Metcalf. And I think when you hold him to 29 yards, you feel good about that. Geno Smith only with 171 yards passing. So I think the defense did well. Jonathan Cooper with another sack later in the game, 2 sacks. Mm-hmm. The idea that the Broncos could get after them in a group, I think, was valuable. Zach Allen, I think, was impactful for a lot of the game, even though he didn't get the big sack numbers. So I liked a lot of what the Broncos did right up until they didn't. And I get that Kenneth Walker's a good back. I know that Seattle can run. But the Broncos went from being able to at least contain him to not being able to stop him at all. Once the Seahawks committed to getting Walker wide, get him outside the hashes, get him towards the sideline, and the Broncos seemed to not have any particular answer for that. And that's where, at least defensively, the game seemed to slip away from them.
Yeah, I think that it really did. And look, they averaged, 4.5 yards a carry, roughly. Mm-hmm. Seattle did, which is a big number. You need to be able to slow something like that down. And I think that, look, we knew this was going to be the case, and we'll talk about Bo, obviously, here in a little bit. We knew this was going to be the case, that we were going to say, okay, we don't really know what we have until you put them out there at full speed. Preseason, you don't really learn anything, in my opinion. Coaches do, because they can pick up on certain things with players. They certainly see that, but you don't know what you have until you actually are out there going full speed. And so in addition to trying to pick up what you can learn and what you can teach and what you can do going forward with Bo Nix, we were going to see that across the board. We were going to see that out of the defense. We were going to see it out of special teams. We were going to see it out of the offense. All of that. And so I think we learned something, or I'm hoping that we learned something, and that there's going to be some film opportunities for Vance Joseph from a defensive standpoint, because you can't sit there and give up 146 yards on the ground, 150 yards on the ground. You can't give up 4.5 yards a carry. You just can't. Like, Geno Smith didn't have to throw, because you could just keep
Right.
running. That was all that needed to happen.
Walker with 5.2 per at the end. Even Geno Smith, of course, with the big run for a touchdown, the 34-yarder, ends up averaging 7.5. He actually lost yards on the others. But, they just couldn't contain Walker. And that eventually, some of that it's hard to tell now because some of that may have just been fatigue. They were on the field a lot. They were not winning the time of possession battle for sure. And so we'll have to find out maybe in the next game how much that holds up. But yeah, Seattle in the second half especially seemed to have it a lot easier and could more or less do what they wanted, whereas the Broncos just can seem to be consistently challenged on moving the ball at all. We'll get into more of that over the course of the show. But Bo Nix finishes with 138 yards passing, 3.3 yards per attempt. That is dangerously low to the NFL record that Ben Roethlisberger held for a game in which he averaged 2.68 per. And for a while, Nix was even challenging that. I do question some of the play calling, in fact, a lot of the play calling by Sean Payton, who appeared to be almost neither fish nor fowl, did definitely not want to be aggressive, but also didn't want to be terribly conservative, and ended up with some sort of weird squishy middle that by the end, the Seahawks defense looked more than happy to realize they're not going to beat us on the ground. We're just going to go after Nix and sell out. And it worked.
Yeah, it absolutely did. I think there was a lot about the play calling that was odd to me. And it's funny because we talk about the defense being tired. I mean, the Broncos won the time of possession battle.
Mm-hmm.
They did. It just didn't feel like it, did it?
No.
So the numbers tell you that the Broncos held the ball more than Seattle did. Now a couple of safeties will do that to you, right? I mean,
get extra possessions.
You're getting extra possessions out of it. But it definitely didn't feel that way. And I think the defense did get tired. And I think that happens when they're just smashing you, running the ball. And so, yeah, I think there was a lot of head scratching to this game, but at the same time, I don't see this result, frankly, any different than what I expected. Like, I know people are disappointed, and I saw that on social media a lot. I saw it during the game, and I saw it afterwards and all of that. Like, I get people are disappointed, but I keep coming back to what we talked about for 2 months. You have a rookie quarterback starting his career in the National Football League on the road in a massively hostile environment.
Yes, and still the truth of the matter is he looked very much, it's funny, it's almost cliche to say, but he looked like a rookie.
Yes.
How many of his passes were behind a receiver by a smidge? How many of his passes were in a spot where you should know at the NFL level you can't throw?
Correct.
How many of those passes were like that? Game speed seemed a little fast. Again, a rookie. Preseason.
It's supposed to feel that way.
In preseason, these guys aren't running. Your defenses aren't running the kind of stuff they run in the regular season, so Nix could look good. Also playing against a lot of 2s and 3s at times, guys that aren't in the league anymore. So it was fast for Nix. That was expected. He made plays in which he shouldn't have thrown. He could have thrown a few more picks than he did. He was fortunate not to, but this is kind of what you expect. I'm not concerned about this game. My question with Nix as we'll go forward is how many times will he make these same mistakes? Hopefully it's not very many. I expect the mistakes to be made. That's how you learn and that's how you get better. You have to make them, learn from them, and then adjust. The question will be now, how quickly does he adjust? Is it next week? Is it within a month? When do you get used to that game speed? And truthfully, folks, it's probably not going to be in the next 7 days. It takes more time than that.
TJ Watt is coming to town.
It's a little scary.
Period. That's how the sentence ends.
Yeah.
He's not, if he thought it was a fast game speed in Seattle, if he thought he had pressure in Seattle, if he thought he was throwing off his back foot in Seattle, if he thought that he was hearing footsteps, you wait till TJ Watt gets here on Sunday and then tell me whether or not he is still calm, cool, and collected. I mean, he is getting thrown to the wolves in the first 2 games of the year. The first one on the road, and the second one with TJ Watt and that Pittsburgh defense coming to town, because Pittsburgh's defense is better than Seattle's. And Seattle made him look like a rookie, and he made himself look like a rookie.
He did. And some of this with Nix, I think, is not particularly concerning. There's no reason, I think, to start panicking about Bo Nix, but I do wonder a little bit. And we'll talk about this over the course of the week, and we learn a little bit more. Sean Payton definitely complained about receivers. He complained about the running game. There are fair complaints to be made about those things, though. Those, for the most part, aren't rookies, Audric Estime notwithstanding. And I get all that. And Sean Payton reserved a little bit of what he does after most games. I need to be better too. Almost throws it in as an afterthought.
Mm-hmm.
But the play calling to me was totally baffling. If the Broncos had more playmakers to run after the catch, maybe these 2-yard outs would make more sense. But who on the Broncos? Certainly not Cortland Sutton anymore post multiple knee injuries. Certainly not Josh Reynolds, who's always been a 2 or a 3. Devon Vele is a very, very nice player. In fact, 8 for 8 when targeting Vele, not for a lot of yards, but when you can look at everyone else, pretty good. But again, not a guy, not a burner, really kind of Tim Patrick, a younger version. If you don't have playmakers that can make a difference after the catch, then why are you throwing passes that basically set you up to fail? And that's one of the things that Sean Payton's going to have to look at after this week and decide what he's going to do next week.
Yeah, he's got a lot that he needs to be able to do, but they all do. I mean, again, I say you got to get into the season with this new roster, with a new quarterback, and see what you have. And everybody needs to take time on film. Everybody needs to take time to look in the mirror. And if they do that and they can make some improvements, it's going to be a fun day on Sunday. My entire goal for this year was for this team to be entertaining, for this team to be in games. And that's all I'm really looking for. If you take away a couple of mistakes, do the Broncos win yesterday? Maybe. I still think they probably wind up losing that game, even if you remove the interception, particularly the one at the 1-yard line. But all I want them to be is entertaining, and I want to see incremental improvement week after week, game after game, quarter after quarter. That's what I'm looking for out of this team. I don't have this crazy expectation. I don't have the, I told you, and so did Sean, do not take the over on 5.5 wins. Take the under. And that's not a bad thing. I wish everybody understood that.
Yeah, it isn't. And there are things to like about the game. My concern would be that the game for the Broncos, they did not get better quarter to quarter. The second half, if the game had kind of gone the way it did till halftime and the Broncos lose that close, I'm feeling different than I am today. But the way the game ended, the Broncos seemed to get almost worse as they went along, barring the touchdown run by Nix. We'll talk more about that. But the one bright spot, as we mentioned, Jonathan Cooper, 2 sacks. The defense looked explosive, looked dangerous, got over and confuse things for Geno Smith. Can they do it next week versus Justin Fields or Russell Wilson? I suspect they can. Jonathan Cooper had a chance to talk about it after the game.
I don't know if I can put a finger on it per se. I would just say that, as leaders of the defensive stuff, we got to make sure we all come together and do better when it comes to that second half. And that's really all it is. I really like how they played. I like how the guys came out. We were getting after it like everybody saw, but, like I said, that second half, it can't be a die-down energy, and I take that personally on myself too.
I think there are things to like about what you saw there. I find that if you can continue to do it, but you're talking about facing a Pittsburgh Steelers team next that did win, but never got in the end zone.
Yeah, exactly. Very odd game for Pittsburgh. So I'm excited for them to be at home. I'm excited for Bo Nix to have an opportunity to be in front of the home crowd. I think that the crowd is going to get behind him and give him some of that home energy that I think he can play off of. And then you just, like I said, you just hope that you can get some things done with the offensive line to protect him because, again, TJ Watt's a beast, y'all.
Yeah.
I mean,
that part's more than a bit
scary, man. That is scary.
It is true. We'll find out more about that. Yeah. We'll talk more about Bo Nix in a moment.
We'll talk about Bo here in just a minute. But hey, you know what? We found out. Bo and his wife bought themselves a house. They did. They're sitting down there at Castle Pines, looking out over that course, and it's a very nice house. And if you're looking for a house, you're looking to buy, you're looking to sell, you're looking for an investment property, you're looking to downsize because the kids have gone off to college, whatever it is, I want to make sure that you use our friends Dave and Mark at Key Real Estate Group's Colorado Luxury Home Team. We've talked about them for years, and we've told you about the fact that when we talk about luxury in their title, in the Colorado Luxury Home Team, it doesn't mean you've got to be in the market for something like what Bo was. If you are, fantastic. But if not, Just remember that what you're looking for is the luxury service, and that's what Dave and Mark provide. There's a lot of real estate agents around Denver and around Colorado that brag about their sales history, and then when you sign up with them, they hand you off to an assistant, and you don't actually get to work with this supposed superstar. When you reach out to Dave and Mark, you are working with them specifically from start to finish. They are there every step of the way. They're there to help you out. They're there to make recommendations. They study the market, and they've spent 25 years in the same offices, which means they know their way around the Denver real estate market. So I want you to check them out online, keyrealestategroup.com, keyrealestategroup.com. And when you do, you're going to see listings. You're going to find out more about Dave and Mark and all the services that they do. And when you do talk to them, make sure you tell them that Nate and Sean sent you.
Absolutely. Bo Nix with his first start, 26 for 42, 138 yards, two interceptions, one rushing touchdown. Could have thrown probably
at least three more
picks.
Could have thrown three more.
Yeah, it could have been really a disaster, but he could have been helped by a better run game, and that's something that Sean Payton alluded to after the game.
Yeah.
I don't know how many balls we dropped. And so I've said this before, for any quarterback playing, we've got to be more effective running the football. We'll see the rushing. If you take away his scrambling yards, I think we're like somewhere 60 yards rushing to their 140. So not nearly good enough.
Well, he's right. It was 64 yards when you take away Bo Nix's runs on 20 carries. That's a 3.2 yards per carry. Isn't that roughly what Javonte Williams got at the tail end of last season that everyone was complaining about?
Yeah, exactly. Look, I don't think that Sean Payton did any favors in terms of the play calling.
No, there were 20 carries, 20 rushes from running backs, 44 pass attempts.
Yeah, that is not how you introduce a rookie quarterback in a hostile environment. I think he abandoned it. Troy Renck, who will join us coming up here in about 10 minutes. Troy talked about it on his podcast today. Just that getting away from the run really hurt them. And I think that we saw that, if you were watching the game and you were watching it with the sound, outside of the running calls, if we talk about Bo Nix in particular, and I know that Cody's doing this in his Bo film breakdown that'll be posted up on YouTube here shortly. Adam Archuleta did a really good job of showing, and the video crew did for CBS as well, really well done by them, of Bo Nix just staring at his receivers like this. And all the defense had to do was look at his eyes, and they knew exactly what he was going to do.
Like most rookies.
Because he was just staring at his receivers the entire time. Can't do that, man. And now the beauty is, and I was talking to somebody about this last night after the game, the beauty with that is something that is extremely coachable. Yes. That is something that he will get to. That is getting away from that Oregon one and done rapid fire offense, right? And understanding it's not just about going through your reads, it's about doing it in a way that makes the defense not know where you're going, as opposed to this, which is what he was doing.
Yep.
And Archuleta did a really good job of showing it on that pick that he threw at the 1 yard line.
Yeah. Guy's a former safety, knows to pay attention to such things.
And he also, like I said, the CBS crew did a really good job. I hat tip to their production crew, because they had that end zone camera that was just focused on Bo's face. And so you could see it plain as day. And he did it multiple times.
It was obviously a challenging game. And yeah, there is a lot to, I think, unpack, especially regarding the play calling. I think that is concerning. But so much of it, when you look at the charts in which they had him throwing, Bo Nix didn't attempt many passes beyond 10 yards. He really only attempted even 6 passes beyond 15 yards. Only one of those was caught, and 2 of those were intercepted. Right. So the more time you stare somebody down, the more time that they're going to have an opportunity to catch up. So that's obviously something you'll have to learn. And yeah, I mean, Oregon's offense was kind of one read, and then, either run or hit your hot route, your dump off guy, whether that's a running back or maybe Troy Franklin over the short middle of the field. Sure. Inactive for the Broncos in his Broncos first game as a pro. But there are, I think, things for Nix that can be improved. And I think the other part that's interesting, though, that I want to hit on, it's one game, so don't take too much into it. But when was Bo Nix at his best, Nate?
Oh, when he was kind of doing improv,
Mm-hmm.
which, I know we were talking before we got on the air. Like, yeah, that's awfully familiar.
That was when Russell Wilson was his best, right? When Russell Wilson was on improv, was off script. What made Sean Payton infuriated to the point where we were screaming at Russell Wilson on the sidelines, and then along with the Broncos wanted to get him out of town as soon as possible. It was when Russell Wilson was going off script.
Right.
The problem is Bo Nix was best when he was going off script, and that at some point you have to go,
So something's wrong with the
do
script.
we have to check the script, right? I mean, it's one game. I'm not going to go overboard. I really am not. I think I get it. But should we think about that, Broncos fans, when two quarterbacks, a established veteran that had a borderline Hall of Fame resume before coming to Denver, and a rookie, both look the best when they're not following the script? Maybe the script isn't that good, right? And that's something that I think Sean Payton's going to have to look at. And it involves committing to the run, not giving up on it. They ran the ball 7 times in the second half. 7.
So dumb.
Which is really a problem when you come out of halftime with the lead.
Yes.
And you have 7 total runs. That's got to get fixed. I know that Sean Payton is a smart coach. I know that Sean Payton likes other people to point out he's a smart coach. I know that Sean Payton likes it when people point out he's a clever coach. The Broncos tried to basically a fake field goal early in the game that nobody fell for, hoping you might draw them off sides, and then went in and took the delay game, and then Lutz hits a 35-yarder. Okay, that's fine. But Sean Payton's that guy. He's the onside kicked wants to start the Super Bowl in the second half. That's who he is. And I get that. But at a certain point, you don't have Drew Brees. You don't have Alvin Kamara. You don't have Jimmy Graham. You don't have Michael Thomas, whether you got along with him or not. You don't. You don't have that level of playmaker on this roster. And until you do, you have to change your script. It was great when you have a handful of Hall of Famers and near Hall of Famers and Pro Bowlers all over your roster. But until you do, this is my one complaint with Sean Payton that I haven't quite been able to understand why there's no alteration. Sean Payton runs his offense like a college coach, insofar as these are the plays I run. These are the plays I call. I have to have players that can do exactly this and this and this and this. That's fine. That's what college coaches tend to do, because you can recruit and you can scour, and you can, if you need a 6'7" left-handed mobile quarterback, you can go get one somewhere across the country. There's one of those guys. In the NFL, you are subject to the vagaries of the draft, of free agency, of salary cap. And what it means is, by design in the NFL, you don't get the roster you want. Virtually nobody gets the roster they want, ever. Kyle Shanahan's going to coach a game tonight. He doesn't have the roster he wants. That includes his quarterback, which he's happy with now, but they wanted that to be Trey Lance. It doesn't work that way. So Sean Payton has to start making more evaluations and better evaluations, and altering the way he runs his offense to base it on the players he has. And in certain cases, like Bo Nix, Nate, with the player he has now, by the end of the year, maybe you can open up that playbook. Maybe you can do some more creative things, but right now you can't. And you need to go ahead and lean on runs, play action, things to help your quarterback.
Everybody thought he was going to run the ball yesterday, and then he didn't. Look, we went into this game going, you can take a rookie quarterback,
2-1.
You get him a break, and you run the ball. Well, they didn't. And like I said, Troy talks about it on his podcast today, on the new episode that's been posted of the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck, and Troy's going to come up here in a second. Like you abandoned it. You just
with the lead.
I'm baffled. I'm baffled. And again, I thought they were going to lose. This isn't about me going, oh, they should have won. This is more about just like, it's just too many times I'm scratching my head going, what are you doing, man? What are you doing?
You ask most teams in a first half, if you have 2 safeties, 2 extra possessions after the safeties, and you've generated a turnover, your games are going to look a little bit more like what we saw with the New Orleans Saints yesterday. You're thinking we're up 27-0 at halftime. And the Broncos were up. Yeah. But they simply could not take advantage of the opportunities that were given to them.
I want to share a thought that somebody just popped up with on Facebook. Dolphus, thank you for watching. We appreciate this. He says, I think Bo staring down receivers is a result of everything moving a little fast. PJ Locke said after practice that Bo does a great job of looking off the defense and playing games with them. With that said, I think he just needs time to settle in, especially with the receivers. Interceptions are going to let Nix know what throws he can and can't throw against a starting defense. Dolphus, thank you for the comment. We appreciate it, and thanks for watching. I think you're right. And again, that's what I say. Staring down the receivers, it was one of the things, like I said, I loved what Archuleta did on the broadcast yesterday, but it was one of the things that I saw when they did that. But the first thought that I had was that can be fixed.
Sure can.
That can be fixed.
Experience fixes that as well.
Right? I mean, having a noodle arm or, something mechanical is a lot harder. This is something that he can pick up on going forward with, even with his receivers. And I think he will get there. I was pleasantly surprised by Vele yesterday. I really was. That made me happy to see that type of performance and to see that Bo clearly had a good connection with him, right? You said it, 8 targets. Boom.
Cortland Sutton, for example, was 4 for 12 targeting Sutton. So,
and so I think that I think there's a lot that can be taken from it. Our job here is to be picky.
Right.
It is to beat him up. He's a rookie. And look, the coaching staff's going to do the same thing to him. They're going to say, hey, that throw on the sideline to Reynolds was gorgeous.
Yep.
That was a beautiful pass and reception that he threw. And then the pick you threw was, what are you doing, man?
At one point, throwing into triple coverage and somehow
that was the one that was the one that
triple coverage.
The guys I was watching the game with,
yikes.
We all just looked at each other and went, did he just do that?
Yeah.
It was,
and that's what
that one was a little
rookies.
painful.
And again, it's not about the mistakes. Rookies make the mistakes. John Elway was pulled from his first start. So, I mean, these things do happen. It's a matter of understanding why you made the mistake, what you saw when you made the mistake, how you can avoid it going forward. And Nix at least does seem to be a pretty bright guy and a pretty conscientious learner when it comes to getting back in there in the film room and working on studying it. So if he continues to improve and get better, that's okay. You're going to look back at these and say, okay, big deal. They lost a game they were expected to lose anyway. They lost it by exactly the points, not the way it was drawn up. But in the end, the result is what most people expected, and Nix will get better as he goes. So next opportunity, of course, will be at home here versus the Steelers. Don't know who you'll face a quarterback yet, but we will find that out in a bit. Troy Renck will join us momentarily, but I want to remind you, if you're looking for the perfect place to work, play, exercise, and socialize, well, look no further than the Denver Athletic Club, right in the heart of downtown Denver. As a DAC member, you'll enjoy top-notch amenities like a full fitness center. Well, of course, you're expecting that, right? I mean, you're going to go there and work out, but they also have a licensed childcare center, a spa, massage, Pilates, golf simulators, and more. And what truly sets the DAC apart, what's had it in its place for more than 100 years, is that vibrant community. The club is all about you and its members, offering year-round social events, co-working, dining, and fun for the entire family. The Denver Athletic Club is truly a club for your whole life. So join the DAC today. Find out what everybody's been talking about for a century now. Visit denverathleticClub.cc for all the details.
You know, my favorite thing right now, Sean, is as we're broadcasting, we've got the we've got the preview of everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now I'm looking at I was looking at Troy's desk there, and Troy was missing, and all I was staring at was a chair and a flag, and I thought, where is he? Where is he? But now he's managed to bounce in. Our good friend from the Denver Post, one of our Broncos insiders and one of our favorite people, Troy Renck, joins us. Troy, Sean and I were just talking about this, and I know that it was a topic that you talked about on your Broncos podcast that you can find here on the Mile High Sports YouTube channel, as well as wherever you get your pods. You talked, Troy, about the idea of Sean Payton hurting Bo Nix by abandoning the run the way that he did in the second half. I want you to expand on that a little bit for us.
Well, he even acknowledged it today. When I talked to Sean Payton in post-game press conference, it was just like, the idea was never to have Bo Nix drop back 44 times in his debut at Lumen Field, where rookie quarterbacks are now 4-15. And running backs, so take out Nix, running backs had 7 carries in the second half. And it just won't work. And I get it that sometimes as a coach, there's that gravitational pull to the passing game, and when the running game's not working, but it's on Peyton to find the fit. You got to coach him up better. You got to get the scheme better. I think they do need to go under center a little more. I asked him that today, Nate, on the presser, and he said that he didn't think that was the issue. It's more of linemen getting to their landmarks, the backs having better vision, and the scheme being better. He described it as a multi-layer issue they need to iron out wrinkles with. But the reality is this. Most quarterbacks in the NFL, if they throw 4 lose. Rookie quarterbacks, I would without knowing the stat, I bet their winning percentage is about 10% in games where they throw 40, 45 times. So they got to figure that out because while Seattle's defense was nice, it's not comparable to Pittsburgh. And if they throw 45 times against Pittsburgh, look out because TJ Watt might be the best player in the league at any position. That is not a good place for Bo Nix to be dropping back with that guy in his face.
Then the home crowd in Denver isn't going to do anything to dissuade TJ Watt either. So let's look at this a little bit too, Troy. I talked about this but just before you came on. Bo Nix was best in the game when he kind of went off script, when he scrambled, when he ran, when he created. That's when Russell Wilson was the best too. And it's also when Sean Payton was the most angry at him. Is what you're talking about the gravitational pull of the passing game that Sean Payton cannot seem to keep himself away from? Is that potentially some of the problem here? Because now we're talking about 2 quarterbacks that are best when they're not actually following the script.
Well, I think it needs to be an anomaly with Bo Nix, even though he does run well. And he got up to like 20, 21 miles per hour in his run. He is a guy who, in theory, can throw on time, on target. That was what was so odd about Sunday's game being there live is he got spooked a little bit. He got rattled. I mean, he was behind players. He was ahead. I mean, Sean, you have a baseball background. It's like a pitcher you're used to watching for a month throw strikes, always ahead in the count. And here's all of a sudden ball 1, ball 2, ball 3. Then even this first strike is a little marginal. He was off for a long time in this game. And that is something that you have to address mechanically because he was falling back, throwing off his back foot. But to your point, it does raise the interesting question. Why is off script better than on script? It can't be in the Sean Payton offense. And where they're going to have to address an issue, 2 things. One is sobering. Where are the playmakers? We've talked about this on this show. When people ask me about, why don't you think the Broncos will win 10 games? Who's going to score the touchdowns? Vele, is he ready? I mean, who is Cortland Sutton is a 2 on every team but this one. So that's a problem. They don't get separation as wideouts. Where are the playmakers? No deep threat. Marvin Mims remains a ghost in the passing game. But they have to find a way to get on time in the run game to create slants, to create those timing routes. And to your point, yes, Nix can be good off script. But Sean Payton sees that as kind of backyard football, street ball, not something that's sustainable. Well, to be sustainable, they've got to have balance. They got to run. And they've got to get somebody in this receiving core and one of those tight ends going in the passing game because right now it's just not working. It's just not working. And it's been a concern entering camp. Who are the playmakers? And I don't know the answer to that. I know this. I wouldn't be shocked by early October if Audric Estime is the number 1 back because they need somebody that can get that run game going.
Yeah, they really do, Troy. I agree with you on that running game side. Let's go to the other side of the ball. Some really solid plays out of the defense. Jonathan Cooper starts the game off with a sack. Then we turn around, we get the interception with Alex Singleton. So let's hit on some of the highlights from the defense. I thought, Troy, even though the Broncos won the time of possession on paper, it didn't feel that way. It felt like that defense got a little tired by the time we got into the 3rd and 4th quarter, but they had some really, really good moments against that Seattle offense.
Yeah, the first half they dominated, frankly.
Yeah.
And you look at how aggressive they were with the Singleton pick. You look at the 2 safeties, and it's just the damage they were doing. So on one of Nix's picks, it was really only a loss of 1 point because they were going to kick a field goal there, and you end up getting 2 points on the next play. But in the case of the defense, they were good against the run. They were aggressive. They were opportunistic. They were tackling better than last year. The second half, specifically the 3rd quarter, it all fell out. And it's easy to say, man, here they go, haunted by the demons of not stopping the run. And that's something they have to address. But let's be honest here and pull the onion back a few layers. They had 6 straight 3-and-out drives. If you want to hurt your defense, make them go on the field after a sip of Gatorade after 2 minutes. Like the NFL defenses aren't meant to be going on the field back, over and over and over. Like, you need to sustain drives, even if you're not getting points, guys. Those 3-and-out drives change the whole rhythm of the game. And so Jonathan Cooper played well. I thought Brandon Jones in his first game of free safety, you can see the physical presence that they want out of that position, and he delivered at times. Still, there's still some concern with the secondary in general, but Pat Surtain absolutely blanketed DK Metcalf. So there's some things you can work with there. It's just, what's frustrating is they should have been ahead at halftime by like 13 points, 14 points. Even Peyton acknowledged it this morning. Like, that game was there to be, there for the taking in the first half, where you would have really silenced the crowd, put them in panic mode. And instead, you go in at halftime feeling like you're trailing because you left so many points on the board, on the field.
Troy, Sean Payton after the game said Bo Nix was sharp and he needed more help. That felt a little bit like coach speak. I know that Sean Payton now is sort of attached at the hip to Bo Nix when you're talking about his time with the Broncos. But while the running game wasn't good, while the blocking could have been better, while the receiving could have been better, I agree with you. And Nate agreed as well. We all think that Bo Nix got rattled, got spooked in his first game in a tough place to play. And that's not surprising for a rookie. But is there a reason for Sean Payton to kind of suggest that Bo Nix was actually far better than any of us saw, and it was the rest of the team that let him down?
They're tethered together. Peyton's legacy in Denver is directly connected to Bo Nix now. So he's going to protect him and defend him. I just found it surprising that there wasn't nuance, because when he started saying that, we're so used to him being critical of the quarterback, specifically Russell Wilson, that he's like, I thought he was sharp. I thought he played it. And he repeated that today. He said after he watched the film that, Bo gave him a chance to win. He did say, hey, there's things he's got to clean up. There's some footwork issues, some, vision issues, the eye issues with what he's seen. So he was a little more technical. But the reality is Bo did not play well for 3.5 quarters. It kind of had a Tim Tebow game feel to it, if we're being honest, where the last last drive or so, he makes some plays with his feet and, and a 25-yard pass to Josh Reynolds. But before that, he was going to set a record for lowest yards per attempt in a game. He ended up at 3.29. Ben Roethlisberger has the record at 2.68. So why does he do it, Sean? It's clear. He understands he's got to have patience with a rookie quarterback. Part of it is Peyton's never coached a rookie quarterback. Ian Book is the only rookie to ever start a game for him. That was in 2021 because of COVID. So he's married to Bo Nix. He's going to be protective of him. But I found it interesting that while Sean Payton fell on the sword and said, I got to be better, and then I asked him why yesterday, and he said, because, it wasn't good enough, the execution, that's on me. I thought Bo Nix would do that, especially given his experience in college. The saying goes, guys, in the NFL when it comes to quarterback, when you win, it's we. When you lose, it's me. And Bo, there were times when he was talking, it was a little delusional. We're like, well, I thought we played well. We gave ourselves a chance. I'm like, no, you didn't. You were terrible in the red zone, and you're inaccurate on the ball. I just thought he was going to say, like, hey, I can't turn the ball over. We could have won that game if I don't turn the ball over. I got to be better. And I don't know if he just wasn't, I would say, coached to say it, or if he just wasn't ready to say it. But I was a little surprised, given his maturity, that he didn't fall on the sword with Coach Payton.
Yeah, Troy, I agree with you. I would have expected a little bit more out of that, especially from a guy that has been in the spotlight from a college standpoint as much as he has. I would have expected more of that from him, frankly, with the way that he would have talked to the media. I want to go back to the defense for just a moment and talk about, like we said, they got a little bit tired down the stretch, and I think that hurt them. And again, it was coming in part. You can take Geno Smith's touchdown run out, but they were allowing a lot of yards per carry. They were letting Kenneth Walker III run on them and let Seattle push them around a little bit defensively. Did you see some bright spots, or did you see some spots where you think Vance Joseph can adjust to be able to try to hold the line from a rushing standpoint? Because we've talked about TJ Watt coming and what he's going to wind up doing in the backfield potentially to Bo Nix, but you're also talking about a Najee Harris. You're talking about a team that can run the ball well that's coming to Denver on Sunday.
Yeah, I was encouraged by, glimpses. It just wasn't sustained. DJ Jones at times was controlling the point of attack. Zach Allen at times was. John Franklin Myers gives them more of an aggressive type end. So, like, for the first half, you saw kind of the vision of when you have a healthy Zach Allen, a healthy DJ Jones, John Franklin Myers, Malcolm Roach, like a bigger body, because that's upgrades over what they were rolling out there last year, with Elijah Garcia, Jonathan Harris, Mike Purcell. Unfortunately, those guys, and Purcell was at the end of his career, and the other two just really were more like practice players. So they're better, but can they sustain it? And here, to your point about Vance Joseph, if it gets to the point where you can't win at the line of scrimmage, when do you then take calculated risks with run blitz, with having two linebackers in the game with Barton and Singleton? And Singleton, we got to be honest, sometimes he misses tackles at the point of the attack. For every big tackle, there's a few there where he misses. He's got to be solid and efficient that way. But when you see yourself getting gashed, and Justin Fields, if he starts, he's not a great passer, do you just say, you know what, we're going to sell out a few times here to stop them, to create a 3rd and 9, or to get, on that 3rd and 6 when we think they're doing an RPO? That's where I'm curious to see where this goes. What are the nuances to it, to where you can help your run team without, blitz, nobody behind him, 60-yard run. And that's the next layer of this. When you start to get gashed, and they were, and Kenneth Walker's a legit back, but what do you do then? Do you run blitz? Do you put a bigger body in? Do you rotate? Do you look at your rotation and how that's all going? But it really wasn't. It wasn't necessarily the number of snaps for the Broncos defense. It was like that 6 straight 3 and out didn't help, especially in the first game when guys aren't really conditioned to be going back on the field that quickly. But you're right, Nate. There's encouraging signs with Cooper, and you look at, again, Allen inside and Jones and Franklin Meyer. I like what I saw at times. Can it be more sustainable over 4 quarters? And when it's not, what is Vance Joseph's answer? Do you run blitz? Do you get more aggressive?
8 carries for Kenneth Walker of 5 or more yards in that game. Obviously, that's not going to be something you want to see with regularity. I guess last week.
And Sean, what did the Broncos have as a running back? Did they have 1 carry by a running back over 5 yards?
I think that's right. 1. Yeah, it just did not function, and it was Estime who fumbled on that play.
Yeah, that was actually a great play by the defender.
Fortunately, bounced right back. Yeah. But I guess I want to look at 4 playmakers. You brought that up. Marvin Mims Jr. last year finished with about 22% of the offensive snaps. And it's not as if he was heavily blocked. Tim Patrick was out. Jerry Jeudy was relatively ineffective all year. There were opportunities for Marvin Mims to step forward as a receiver, and he didn't make it happen. In this game, for 17% of the snaps, didn't have a catch. One of the few guys that's supposed to be a playmaker. Now, at a certain point, some of that might be on Mims as a receiver. Some of that might be on Peyton and the creativity required to put Marvin Mims in. But there was this assumption last year that Mims, who was Peyton's first draft pick as a Denver Bronco, was going to play a major role in the offense. Thus far, there's still, more than a year in, no indication that Mims actually is going to be a factor on the offense. And if that's the case, did you really spend a 2nd rounder on a kick returner, all pro or not?
And you moved up to get him, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the deal that I'm realizing with Mims as this season progresses, because last year it was very easy to kind of like create a distraction. And the reason he's not playing is because of Jerry Jeudy. His Pat's block. Judy's not here. And that was going to create, even by Peyton's own admission, more opportunities for Mims. Again, here's the clarity I've gotten over watching OTAs, camp, and the first game. They don't throw deep. What is Marvin Mims' strength? Vertical passing routes, the 9 route, the go route. How many times did they throw that yesterday? I'll hang up and listen. 0. So if you're not going to throw that route, where does he fit? Because you look at Peyton's receivers. He has a type, guys. 6'3", 215, lanky, angular. Marvin Mims is none of that. So if you're not going to throw vertically, he doesn't have a role. And that's where I finally come to. It's not like he's not using him. It's not in the game plan. It's just not in the game plan. And so that's for me why you've got to get under center at times, run the ball better, because that go route is available in play action. Anyone that plays Madden is like, run, 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 boom, over the top.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, it's just basic football. And it's easy for us to say, I get it. I don't watch the film. I'm not in the meetings. Just say in general coach speak, you run the football enough under center, eventually the go route's going to be there because you just keep bringing them in. But if you don't run the go route, Nate and Sean, what is his route? What other route have we seen him run?
Yeah.
And otherwise, in camp, he was Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Yeah, you haven't seen him in the slot. You haven't seen him in the like Wes Welker role, anything like that.
He's not in that role.
He does.
Yeah, he doesn't do it. Troy, one of my favorite things about the fact that you have joined the Denver Post is that obviously we talk a lot of Broncos, and that's the time of year that it is. But the great thing, Troy, is that you get a chance to talk about all the sports. So before I let you go, the other big story over the weekend, $208 million for Jamal Murray. Your reaction to the Nuggets getting it done?
Listen, they didn't really have a choice. If you wanted to take it out through a year, he would have, I just think it would have been miserable if you don't give it to him. Not that you could tell a difference in his mood, frankly. I mean, he's just generally speaking, not the most approachable guy. And I don't care. I'm just saying, but they didn't have another choice. The issue for me is this. Is he going to keep getting better? Is he going to take it seriously, the idea they have no margin for error with no KCP, no Bruce Brown? They need Jamal Murray to be good from post to post. Not, I'm going to coast at times during the season. I'm going to average 20 points and then watch me turn into, Allen Iverson in the playoffs or, Michael Jordan. Like he didn't last year. We had 2 shots, but other than that, he didn't play great in the postseason. He's getting older. He's getting more banged up. So they didn't have a choice, Nate. My reaction is they had to do it. You're still in the championship window with Nikola Jokic. I'm sure Jokic wants him there. So you're in that window, but listen, if they're going to be a championship team again, they've got to get more from Murray and Porter Jr. Porter Jr. is out of the game the last 5 minutes. You're paying him a max. That tells you that contract was a mistake. But they love him. They need more from Murray. I'm not even saying all-star. He's like the best player who's never been an all-star. It's just he's got to play at that kind of level consistently. And I'm not holding the Olympics against him. I think it was a bad fit. He and Gilchrist, they didn't fit. They both needed the ball. And it felt like Jamal was kind of jumping on the bandwagon with Team Canada. I don't think the fit was right. I'm not holding that against him. But he's got to be better. And he's got to be better throughout the season. So I do like it. The fact because they didn't have any other choice at this point. What's the choice? If you weren't going to do it, then you needed to trade Porter Jr., get a couple assets, and kind of reshape the team around Jokic. You can't keep Porter and trade Murray. For me, it's the only way you trade a max contract is you trade Porter, and they won't do it.
He is Troy Renck, our Broncos insider here at Mile High Sports, and of course, right over at the Denver Post. Make sure you give him a follow on social there, Troy Renck on social, and check out the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck, brand new one. Go check it out right now. Thanks a lot, Troy. Appreciate it.
I got a topic for you as I leave. Whose run game is in more trouble, Sean and Nate? You or the Broncos?
Oh boy!
I'll hang up and listen.
I know who that is. I know the answer to that.
That's
and
good stuff, Troy.
Yeah,
good
absolutely great stuff by Troy. It will. You know what? Troy just like the pro he is.
Yes,
he set us right up because I do know the answer to that, and we will address the Colorado Buffaloes in just a moment.
BYB Bare Knuckle returns to Denver, Colorado, Saturday, September 21st for the long-awaited rematch of the 2023 Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame Fight of the Year in one of the greatest bare knuckle battles to ever take place in the Trigon. As former BYB lightweight champion, Mark the Shark Irwin looks to regain his title against the man who took it from him, Julio Tenori. Plus, BYB women's lightweight champion Patty Juarez looks to become BYB's first 2-division women's champion when she faces Courtney Cameron for the BYB Super Lightweight title. Don't miss these great matchups and much more. Visit BYBExtreme.com for tickets and information.
Well, if you were watching some of those highlights right there in our spot for the bare knuckle fight, you may look and think, wow, that's a lot of what happened to the Colorado Buffaloes at Lincoln on Saturday.
I had a feeling that's where you were
going. It's exactly where I was going. The Buffs got absolutely
headed.
embarrassed, 28-10 by the Huskers in a game that wasn't nearly that close. A disaster for Colorado on national television, the exact thing you didn't want to have happen. A loss in and of itself would not have been all that impactful, but the way they lost, coming out playing poorly, getting just dominated. The Buffs looked like they were dead in the water by halftime. Yep. They barely put up much of a fight in the second half, and Nebraska did whatever they wanted in the second half. Way, way, way too easy for the Cornhuskers. And to answer Troy Renck's question, it is the Buffaloes running game that is in far more dire straits than the Broncos, although neither coach does seem to want to use it for some bizarre reason, because just as Sean Payton decided to pass on going ahead and running the ball more than 20 times in a game at more than 2-to-1 ratio for the Broncos, the Buffaloes consistently have done nothing on the ground since Deion Sanders has taken over as coach. He talks about it after every game, talked about it after this loss, about how important it was to get a running game going. At a certain point, you just have to invest in it, and you have to understand running games are like the stock market, okay? You don't get, I get it. Troy was talking about playing Madden, right? So everyone likes throwing deep balls and instant gratification, right? I get that. But here's the deal with running games. If you're going to run the football, you have to accept, especially if you're not a great running team like Colorado or the Broncos, you have to accept that you are not going to get immediate dividends. It's going to be rough. You're going to have to spend some time with a couple of plays for losses, a couple of getting stopped at no gain, a couple hard 1 and 2 yard gains. But eventually, that pays off in the third or fourth quarter. And the Buffaloes in particular, for some more complicated reasons, seem to ignore that running game entirely. And then when they tried against North Dakota State a week ago to run 4 times right up the middle with Dallin Hayden and not get a 4th and 1, and then try this again at a 4th and 1 in this game and fail, they seem surprised it doesn't work. You have to invest in the running game. And thus far, whether it's because the Buffs running game is not good enough, the line isn't good enough, it's tough to tell they don't do it enough. But there is also the feeling that maybe the Buffaloes just look and say, Travis Hunter, Shadur Sanders, Jimmy Horn are our best 3 players. Let's just go ahead and do what makes them best. And the end result is maybe that's true. Maybe that makes the Buffaloes explosive and interesting, but it also makes them predictable, even as talented as Sanders and Hunter and Horn are. And I think you saw that come to light on Saturday.
Yes, you absolutely saw it. But I'm going to reiterate what I put out on Twitter on Saturday evening. And I'm going to say it again. If you are surprised by what happened in Lincoln on Saturday, you are not paying attention. Period.
It's fair.
You're drinking the black and gold Kool-Aid. Somebody replied to me on that comment that I made on Twitter. Somebody replied to me with a great take, with a great line. All hat, no cattle.
Right.
That's what it is right now. And there are some playmakers on that team. But it just doesn't, it's just not clicking. And that is entirely on the coaching staff.
Yes.
100% it is on the coaching staff, because there's talent on that roster. There is. But right now, you're not getting the best out of it. And you can't win in the trenches right now. That's why North Dakota State was running all over them. And the moment you put this team, I mean, frankly, in any conference, but the moment you put CU back in the Big 12, if you can't stop the run, you're screwed. Period.
It's going to be rough. Nebraska gets 149 yards, pair of touchdowns on the 35 carries to 4.3 yards per carry. Not overwhelming, but Colorado's insistence on sticking with the pass alone. 22 carries for the Buffs. Of course, college is a little different. Quarterback sacks count as rushes, and they count against the rushing yards. But Charlie Offerdahl, who is nominally the starter, and I get it, great story. Former walk-on, now scholarship guy. Deion Sanders seems to have kind of a fondness for Offerdahl that maybe is personal and extends beyond into football. Offerdahl had 4 carries for 4 yards. He's not particularly adept at picking up the pass. Augustov was 2 for 6. Dallin Hayden, as they finally started to try it a little bit, 5 for 32, including a 17-yarder, 6.4 per, the former Ohio State transfer. You need to give that guy the rock 20 times a game.
Mm-hmm.
Period. 20, not 5, 20. and not mix and match with Offerdahl, because Offerdahl doesn't give you anything that Hayden can give you. Anything. Not the speed, not the blocking, not the power, nothing. I get it. I like the guts. I like the story. Hayden's your best back. You need to run him. Shedeur Sanders cannot just continue to drop back and play Russell Wilson ball, which is, and literally, if I'm a defensive coordinator, here's what I think. Shedeur Sanders is going to take the snap. If we can get any pressure on the pocket, he will roll out to his right. He will wait for either Hunter or Horn, perhaps Wester, to get open down a sideline route and then go for the touchdown kill shot down the sideline. That's what Sanders does. That's what Russell Wilson did for a lot of his career. It's what he tried to do here in Denver and didn't have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett or Golden Tate or any of the receivers that he had when he was in Seattle. But that's what Shedeur Sanders is doing. And it's fortunate that he has brilliant receivers. Hunter with 10 catches for 110 yards, although Hunter was frustrated beyond belief the whole game. And you don't know whether it was at the play calling, whether it was at the performance, who knows. But this kind of offense is unsustainable. They should have learned the lesson from North Dakota State. They didn't. Hopefully the lesson got ground into them like they got ground into the Lincoln turf.
Yes, that's what you're hoping. Maybe. Again, you've got coaches that need to be able to coach. That need to be allowed to coach.
Is really on the coach, right? Phil, I mean, when we're talking about the coaching staff, Warren Sapp is a graduate assistant coach, first time. Phil Lodeholt, still new to it. You're talking about a lot of guys with NFL experience, which is part of Deion Sanders' pitch, right?
Sure.
We'll get you to the NFL because we have a lot of NFL guys on our staff.
Right.
But how many players have they coached to be better than they are? CU is having a tendency of getting talent, and there is real talent. But you can't just go out athlete a team at this level. This isn't FCS. This isn't this isn't D3. You can't just get the best out. This isn't even Jackson State, where Shedeur Sanders didn't really even need a play, could just draw it up in the dirt and go be successful.
Yes.
It can't work like that. And the coaching staff has to actually coach technique, mindset, process, instead of just, let's be tough, let's go get them, the sort of generic coach speak. That kind of hard work has to go in there, because when you are seeing the kind of performances like this consistently, what we saw in the first two games, even though one was a win, is how we saw the Buffs end in a skid of last season.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing, I think, for Buffs fans. Not the loss. The loss is not a surprise. The loss isn't even that disappointing. You got Nebraska last year when you were at home and you beat them. They beat you at their place. Okay, that's the way it goes in rivalries. But they're playing the same way. And so many of these players have been there for a second year. The coaching staff is there for a second year. There's been no distinct improvement in these first couple games in the manner in which the Buffs play.
Yeah. Like I said, if you were surprised, then you weren't paying attention. You weren't looking at it objectively and recognizing the problems that this team has. Because, look, Nebraska's above average.
They will probably make a bowl this year.
Yeah.
For the first time in
a while.
Seasons.
Yeah. I mean, so
but they'll probably win 6 games?
Yeah.
7 games at most?
They're above average. You got some teams coming up on your schedule.
Better than that.
That are a hell of a lot better than that. So yeah, it's just it's ugly.
Shiloh Sanders suffers a broken arm in that game. He had successful surgery today, at least according to Deion Sanders' social media. Showed his son recuperating, and Shedeur Sanders leaves the game early. Got hit in the head after an ejection that ended up happening for targeting.
Yep.
But then came back in for a short amount of time, then left. Obviously, the game was out of hand. Ryan Staub finished it up. But that's the other part of this with coaching in particular. Pat Shurmur is the offensive coordinator. There has been a kind of the presumption, fair or unfair, that Pat Shurmur was named the offensive coordinator because he did what Sean Lewis would not. And Sean Lewis would tell Shedeur Sanders, these are the plays I want you to run. Pat Shurmur presumably is just saying, run what you want. That's a problem. And Shedeur Sanders is not going to last. He got knocked out, didn't finish the season last year. He won't get through half the season this year unless the play calling changes, unless the execution changes, and unless Shedeur Sanders finds a way to get the ball out of his hands faster, no matter what it does to his statistics.
Yeah, you got to be able to do that because, I mean, look, after the North Dakota State game, oh man, that's a top pick Somebody's going to take him, be the quarterback.
Now, it's six sacks in this one, too, by the way.
He's going to go to the Cowboys.
Shedeur Sanders.
Jerry Jones loves him.
Not anymore, because Dak Prescott got the Jamal Murray situation. Like, what are you going to do? You got to sign him. You can't let him walk. But the
misery continues for Dallas fans.
Yeah. How about this for an interesting part for the games, though? And one is a win and one is a loss. And I think you have to look at it in that aspect. But in the first half of their games this year, Buffs have been outscored 48-17. That's disastrous.
It's going to keep climbing, too.
In the second half, they've outscored their opponents 24-6. Now, Nebraska, of course, could kind of put it on cruise control, because you could tell by the time the Buffs walked across the field to their locker room at halftime, they weren't coming back. They were beaten. That you could tell. The Huskers came with more energy. It's fascinating. Matt Rule said after the game that our team is the star. It was gentlemanly shade, but shade nonetheless.
Oh, heck yeah, it was.
And that's, I think, the part. Look, you have legitimately a young quarterback in Shedeur Sanders that has all-world talent. He can make every throw. He's accurate. He can move. He has the size. There's no questioning his toughness. Physically, he's plenty tough.
Yeah.
The question is, if you're a pro scout, can he get the ball out fast enough? Can he read a defense, which I think is still in question? You and I have a mutual friend, props to Chine. We'll give him a little shout out here, who texted me on the interception that Sanders threw basically at the goal line.
Right.
And he texted me and said, that's the worst pass I'll see this year in the NFL, the NCAA, in the NBA, when I'm at home playing Madden. That's the worst. And he's probably right. You have to know better. You have to read the defense and understand you cannot lollipop a throw completely to the sideline, basically at your goal line, and throw up a 50-50 ball. I don't care if you do have Travis Hunter or Jimmy Horn Jr. You can't do it. And these are the things that for the next step for Shedeur Sanders to be in the mix, to be the top quarterback selected. Now, this is what's going to happen. And it's fascinating, because I think the idea about Sanders' draft stock is the end of last year. Wow, this guy could be the first pick in the draft. Now, all of a sudden, with a little more time, scouts are going to start seeing there were 18 scouts at the first game up in Boulder, sitting up in that box. They're going to start seeing those things. Oh, wow, Kent doesn't get rid of the ball fast enough. Consistently rolls out to the right, takes too many hits, doesn't read defenses. These are the notes that are coming down right now. I actually think Shedeur Sanders can overcome every one of those. The question is the coaching going to be strong enough to do it? That might define the rest of the Buff season.
Yep. Is he going to get the coaching now, or is it going to have to wait till he gets to the NFL?
Yeah, because if he does, that's the difference between being a top 10 pick and a second or third round pick. And that's a lot of money, whether you're Sanders or not.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That is a lot of difference in money. Did you have a profitable betting weekend, folks? That's what I want to know. Did you have a profitable betting weekend? I had some highs and lows, some ups and downs. I actually, in a survivor pool with our friend Chine that we were just talking about, there are 30 people in that survivor pool. 16 of us took the Bengals. Oops. Whoops. So my guess is that survivor pool is going to restart here in a few weeks, because we've already knocked out more than 50% of the people. If you had a good start to your betting weekend in week one in the NFL, congratulations. If you didn't, there's always a chance to rebound. And if you're somebody that's been thinking about jumping in on the sports betting world, you can do that over at milehighsports.com. We actually have a page dedicated to all the different sign-up bonuses and all the things that you can find across all of the books, and the ones that we've had a chance to dive in. We got the reviews on them. You get the information, but most importantly, that page is always updated with whatever the best offer is that's available to you. So if you are looking for a chance to be able to expand, not just have one particular book that you use on your mobile device, but you want to be able to have more than one, you can find everything that you need over at milehighsports.com. There is a menu item right there that just says Colorado Online Sports Betting. Click on that. It'll take you to the page where we've got everything consolidated for you. And it's also a great way for you to support us here at Mile High Sports, because when you click on those links, the books know that you came from us, and that is actually how we wind up getting partnered and compensated from the books on that. So please go to that page if you're thinking about signing up for something new, whether that's to take advantage of the Fanatics offer. You're looking at Bet365, FanDuel, DraftKings, Caesars, BetMGM. All of those are there. All the latest bonuses are posted up. Go to Colorado Online Sports Betting right there on our page at milehighsports.com.
I love the transparency there, Nate, because you'll see people with partnerships and books, and they'll really be like, oh, well, it's just sort of convenient. No, I mean, it's a business, and
it's a business.
That's how it works, and that's why we want to be transparent. That's why we lead in. Now we get into the betting world a little bit. Your football week is not over. Monday Night Football tonight. Interesting matchup, of course. Aaron Rodgers gets his re-debut. I guess. Is that a word? It is now. With the Jets, now against the 49ers, of course, the powerhouse favorite in the NFC. An exciting first game. I think there's a lot to like about it. But as we saw, you mentioned right there with the Bengals, week one, we don't really know about everything about these teams yet. And weird things happen.
Yes, weird stuff can happen in week one, and it tends to happen that way, which means it could be a very interesting Monday night game taking place in California as the Jets travel. They'll go to Levi Stadium to take on the Niners this evening. The odds right now on the contest, Niners favored by 4. The over-under right now is set at 43. I'm not touching the spread because I think it's actually dead on right. I really do. And frankly, I'm not even sure that it's worth it to be able to do something from a money line standpoint with this one. Will the Jets get a little bit of a bump with Aaron Rodgers coming back? Possibly. And so I think this is one that you stay away from. However, I do think the points are going to be at a premium. So if you were going to try to play one of the standard lines, not a prop style or anything like that, if you were going to play the standard line, I do like the under on the 43. Yeah. You'll see here, we're going to talk a same game parlay in a little bit. But you'll see that I think the smartest way to be able to do it, to be honest with you, is to bump that total up and make it part of a same game parlay, which you're going to see that I managed to do. But Sean, 4 is the spread, 43 is the total. Before we get into some of my picks, my props, etc., I told you I'm leaning to the under. What are you thinking in this game?
I'm also leaning to the under. I know there's the potential for explosiveness when you're talking about these two teams. I get that, but we saw so many other times in week one, there's some bumpiness. And both of these teams, quite frankly, also have pretty good defenses. The Jets have a better defense than people thought. They did last year, too. Yes. Under Robert Saleh, of course, from the 49ers, as their defense coordinator, knows that team as well. And so they're good defenses that can get after the quarterback. So I think, the under is the way to go. I certainly do like the Niners. I'll believe in the Jets when I see it. Yes. But I'm intrigued to see what happens tonight.
Yeah, I am too. I think there's some really interesting plays that you can do within this game and overall with the expectations. But the defenses are going to be very good in this game, and I think that they can manage to force some mistakes. I'll give you an example. I don't have this one set up to put on the screen for you, but if you take both quarterbacks to throw a pick, if you take Aaron Rodgers to throw a pick, you take Brock Purdy to throw a pick. If you parlay those together, it's actually plus 290 for both of them to do it. Brock Purdy, I believe, is actually even money at plus 100. And Aaron Rodgers is slightly below that, minus 120, minus 125, something like that. From an interception standpoint, it would not surprise me at all if both of these guys throw a pick. And it's not necessarily a knock on them, but these are really good defenses. The Jets and the Niners both have very good defenses. Those of you that are playing season-long fantasy or even DFS, defenses that you would lean into if you were trying to build your squad. Here's a couple of fun ones. Let me talk about the quarterback position for a second. Brock Purdy, I'm going to play the under on his rushing yards prop. Yes, I know that's a little odd to take the under. It's only 8.5 yards. Here's the thing, though. This line opened at 6.5, and so many people took the over that it jumped all the way up to 8.5. I'm now going to counter bet that, and I'm going to play the under in it. In 16 regular season games, remember, he was inactive in week 17, or for the 17th game last year in week 18. So he only played 16 games last year in the regular season. He only went over this total 5 times. That's it. I think right now there's some recency bias because he went over this number in all 3 postseason games last year. That is true. He did go over his yardage total by the time they got to the postseason. However, in the regular season, it was not common for him to do this. And so I'm actually going to play the under on this one. I think that the defenses will keep him contained. I think he's more likely to roll and wind up just throwing it out of bounds or something like that than to get this rush total. So I'm going to go ahead and play the under on this one. Best odds out there right now at FanDuel at a minus 110. Again, strong defenses, Sean. So I'm looking at some of the totals. And in particular, like I said, only 5 times this last season in the regular season did he do this. So you're talking about less than a third of the games.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not a big runner. They don't want.
I mean,
him to be a big runner.
he can, much like Bo Nix.
But look
at
the options he has. You have Ayuk and Kittle and Debo and Christian McCaffrey. And
exactly.
Those are better options than Brock Purdy running the football. I'm going to make it even more simple. I'm going to look at the Aaron Rodgers passing yards over at DraftKings. It's a plus 135 for him to throw over 250 passing yards, which to me seems like a pretty easy get because one, Aaron Rodgers is probably going to need to pass because the 49ers are better and they will probably be leading for a lot of this game. So I think that's a big part of it. But two, I think Rodgers is one of those guys to quote Tim Robbins in Bull Durham. He wants to announce his presence with authority. This is a guy that wants to show he can still get it done, can still play, can still generate yards at beyond 40 years old. So I think Rodgers is going to let it fly. I think over 250 is a no-brainer for plus money. It's not a huge benefit for you, plus 135, but all you need for him is to chuck the rock.
Yep.
That's what Aaron Rodgers does.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, though. I'm not making that bet. You can make that bet. I'm not making that bet. I don't think he's going to get to that 250 mark. I think he will be close, but I don't think he's going to get to that 250 mark. I think his standard line is like 234, something right in that range. One of the reasons why I don't think that he's going to wind up doing it is, in fact, this next prop that I've got for you. Breece Hall to be the leading rusher in the game is plus odds, plus 115 over at DraftKings. Remember, CMC, as good as Christian is, right over here. Right behind me, actually. As good as Christian is, you're still talking about somebody coming off of an injury.
He's an all-purpose yards guy. I mean, that's really what it is,
right? But this is very specifically saying it's rushing yards, not total, because there is a bet you can make on the most rush plus receiving yards in the contest. But I'm going to say that Breece Hall is going to finish with the most rushing yards in this contest, and I'm going to get that at plus odds at DraftKings. I think the Jets want him to be an every down back. I think they want to run him into the ground, frankly. And so I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities to be able to do that in this contest. Totally believe they will also use him out of the backfield. They will throw the ball to him. Aaron Rodgers will look his way. But I do believe that from a rushing standpoint, that he will wind up finishing with more yards than Christian McCaffrey. That's really the battle you're looking at there, unless you think that Ayuk or Debo is going to, break a 75-yard end around, one of those kinds of things.
Right.
We'd be hosed on this bet, but I'll take it at the plus 115. All right. I said that I had a same game parlay for you for this contest. So here it is. It's a nice and simple one, folks. And I'm focused in on Breece Hall. As you can see, I need him to have 3 or more receptions. His standard line, by the way, opened at 3.5. It's up to 4.5 now. And so I'm going to bring it all the way back down. And I'm just going to say all I need out of him are 3 catches. Then I need him to have 75 or more rush plus receiving yards. Again, I think he's going to be the leading rusher in the game, and I think he's also good for somewhere between 25, maybe 32, 33 yards through the air. So you put all that together, I think he's going to crush this number. But again, all I'm trying to do is put myself in positive territory with a plus 125 payout at BetMGM with this one. And then the third leg to it is for the game total to be under the 50.5. So I've bumped it up an entire I bumped it up an entire touchdown to be able to get it from 43 to 50.5. So one more time, recapping in case you're not looking at the screen and you're just listening. Breece Hall to have 3 or more catches. Breece Hall to have 75 or more rush plus receiving, so total yards for him. And then the game total to be under 50.5. That payout is a plus 125 over at BetMGM. Like I said, I think scoring is going to be at a premium, but man, that 43 total, all it takes is something quirky, a field goal at the end of the first half, something like that. And you wind up getting either a push or they bump it just above that. So like I said, I'm going to take it up to 50, get myself a little bit of space.
And of course it's week 1. Think of some of the funny things that would happen if you would have picked the Steelers with 6 field goals to win.
Right.
If you would have picked the
Bears to not have an offensive touchdown,
right, and win, Caleb Williams to have the game he had, and still have the Bears win. The Patriots knocking off Cincinnati just looking terrible in that mix. The Broncos having 2 safeties in a quarter. I mean, it is week one. The wackiness ensues, so it will be entertaining to see how that all shakes out. And yeah, obviously it will be fun for the betting. And as Nate pointed out, go to Mile High Sports or the Mile High Sports app and check out Colorado Sports Betting and get yourself into the action in the way that works best for you. But if you're self-employed and you are having trouble getting a home loan, there's no gambling whatsoever. You can't afford to do that. You have to find a way to work with someone who knows how to handle this. You need to reach out to SCL Mortgage. Basically, SCL's helped thousands of self-employed people refinance their mortgage or buy a new home with just their bank statement loan. No tax returns needed. SCL has understood the challenges of being self-employed and what that means when it comes to home ownership. Find SCL at myspecialmortgage.com or call 303-790-2222. They've been serving Colorado successfully for 23 years. So call them today. That's 303-790-2222. Or visit them at myspecialmortgage.com. NMLS number 1200716. Nate, you mentioned it with our friend Troy Renck earlier, but Jamal Murray gets paid finally after a quietly, let's say quietly, because it didn't get out of the public, a quietly contentious negotiation that dragged out for quite some time. Yeah. Jamal Murray gets his deal, an extension that will kick in after the upcoming season. 4 years, $208 million, starting with a $46 million deal in the 25-26 season and culminating with the 28-29 season with $57.5 million, in which Murray at that point, at least as it stands today, is the only player on the Denver Nuggets roster that would still be getting paid at this point, extending past everybody else. Murray had a good year, if not a great year last year, but the presumption that playoff Jamal was just a light switch that he flipped on demand went right out the window. The Nuggets, as disappointing as their playoffs probably were, and I'm not going to lay it all on the feet of Jamal Murray, but if Jamal Murray had been better in the playoffs, the Nuggets probably get past the Timberwolves, and then who knows what happens.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case, and then you wait to see exactly what would have happened. But I will say that, I think Troy put it really well, and a lot of people have said this since the news came out over the weekend. I think neither side really had a choice, right? Jamal is better because he's on the court with Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic is benefited by having Jamal Murray on the court. And so it was, I kind of feel like this is one of those situations where, yes, Jamal winds up getting an absolute truckload of money. Good for him. Could he have made that much money from someone else? Yes. Would he have been as effective for another team? I'm not sure he would have been. And so I think this is one of those that it was a marriage that was going to happen. And they were going to get to this contract extension, Sean. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for a guy that, unfortunately, right now, I think there's a little bit of a sour taste because of the lack of performance in last year's playoffs. So let's hope that this is done. It's out of the way. And now everybody can, lock arms and skip down the yellow brick road.
Yeah, I mean, you do have a team where most everybody is now under contract, and that has value. But yeah, there are reasons for concerns. Jamal Murray, the injuries have begun to pile up. There's no two ways around that. He's not getting younger. He's not. That tends to happen. He is better with Jokic than he would be with anybody else, and it works. The two-man game between the two of them is still renowned. You can talk to players and coaches around the league, and we do, and they'll tell you that this is tough to defend those two guys as anybody else. The Nuggets need more help, yes, but it really is very much like the Dak Prescott situation in Dallas. What are you going to do? Let him walk?
Yeah.
I mean, what does it cost is it exactly the guy you want? Maybe not. What's it going to cost to get something equivalent? Probably even more than you're paying. That is if you can get it at all. So if you're the Nuggets, do you let Jamal Murray walk after the end of this year or hope that you can get him back in free agency like they did with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, which, by the way, notably, they did not get back. So do you want to take that risk with Jamal Murray, knowing there are other teams that can outbid you based on the salary cap situation? And then it's not as if they could take that same money, Nate, and say, oh, well, we'll just go towards another player and pay them $46 million. Well, you can't because of the way the cap numbers work.
Right.
And so it's complicated for the Nuggets, who are a bit cap strapped. The NBA's new cap system, which is creating a lot of parity in the league, which is great. That's what it's needed for a long time. But it does make things really difficult for the teams that are good. There are things to like about Jamal Murray going forward. Last year, 48.1% from the field, 42.5 from 3-point. Those were both career highs. That's great. 21.2 points per game, tied his career high. 6.5 assists a game. That's a new career high. All these happened just last season. That's promising, but he didn't play in as many games as you'd like. And then the whole playoff Jamal thing, right? 20.6 points per game, 40.2 from the field, 31.5 from 3, 4.3 rebounds per game. All of those, all career lows in the playoffs for Jamal Murray. So you see a guy that in limited regular season play gets better, but last season in the playoffs was as bad as he's ever been. That has to change. And I think what Troy hinted at earlier in the show is exactly right. Jamal Murray needs to focus on what Nikola Jokic did a couple years ago, really getting his body right, getting his body healthy for the 82-game grind. So you play the kind of game that you want to play in the playoffs, and then you just turn it up a notch too when you're playing against the best. But this idea of kind of going halfway through the motions through the regular season, and then you'll just flip a switch, it's not sustainable. It was never sustainable. And if the Nuggets don't want to be a team that won with the greatest player ever, and that's the only one they'll ever win, and that's possible that's the case, but they've got to take a step forward. And Jamal Murray is the second best player on this team. It falls on him. Jokic can't do anymore. He's the 3-time MVP. A straw poll at ESPN today had him as the number 2 favorite to win the MVP again, at which point he'd have 4. That would be unconscionable. So there's really not any more that Nikola Jokic can do. I get it. Michael Porter Jr. is getting paid. They need more from Michael Porter Jr. as well. But when you talk about guarding the Denver Nuggets, you start with Nikola Jokic, you go to Jamal Murray, and then everybody else. The weight is on Murray. Now he's getting paid like it. Now, like Michael Porter Jr., it's time to step your game up. Does he start from a higher spot? Yeah. But if he wants to be the kind of player that I think Jamal Murray wants to be recognized for, wasn't able to be at the Olympics, you got your money. Now it's time to show up.
Yeah, now you got to be able to show up. And you're right. They need more out of MPJ. They need to continue. I mean, frankly, they need to get more out of everybody. You didn't win last year. You didn't win it all.
And your first-round draft pick is out for the year.
Clearly, you need more.
Started summer league.
Yeah, you need more out of everybody. And first of all, he should already have 4 MVPs. But he should. He should already have 4. He shouldn't be chasing the 4th. He should have won it 4 times in a row. But play politics in the NBA, I guess, for a little bit. I want to see how it all comes together with Russell Westbrook. I want to see how this lineup performs coming into the season. I want to see what, if anything, Michael Malone does from the 2 words that everybody hates in the NBA, load management. Mm-hmm. I want to see what he does from that standpoint with all these guys, and in particular Jokic and in particular Murray. But I want to see what sort of rotation we have. Are there going to be some times during the season that Malone decides he's going to punt on a particular game? Do you rest these guys on, oh, he's got a tweaked ankle. Oops. Oh, he's got a hangnail. I mean, whatever.
Hey, you're paying Zeke Naji $8.9 million. He's the 5th highest. Not joking, folks. Here's in order the salaries: Jokic, Murray, Porter Jr., Gordon. You probably guessed all those. Naji. Russell Westbrook makes $3.3 million this year. Zeke Naji's the 5th highest paid player on the team. At a certain point, Malone's going to have to say, look, I get it. Zeke Naji can't play dead in a Western, seems, on an NBA court, but we're paying him almost $9 million, and Jokic needs the rest. Throw him out there and say, guess what, big fella? Go do the job. Go do what we're paying
play
you
for
to
a
do.
while.
And you know what? And if he gets his butt handed to him, c'est la vie. Because if you're going to go anywhere in the playoffs, you have to be able to manage to rest these guys a little bit more. You got to take a couple more pages from Greg Popovich.
Yeah.
Or Steve Kerr. Maybe you can let Jokic coach a game like Draymond Green did a couple years ago. Why not?
I'm all right with that.
I mean, Jokic already takes the whiteboard a couple times a game, right?
I'm okay with that.
Malone's clearly cool with that, which to his credit, but
he's highly entertaining.
Yeah.
I'd be all right.
Can you imagine the halftime interview with Coach Jokic? I would love that. I would love that. We need to make that happen. That'd be fantastic.
That's when we really miss Craig Sager. You know what I'm saying?
Wouldn't that be?
That would have been
great?
Fun. Him trying to interview Jokic. It's just
about his coaching acumen. Yeah.
But welcome back to Ball Arena. We're joined by Coach Jokic.
What do you think happened in the second quarter there, guys?
He's on the whiteboard drawing pictures of racehorses.
Yeah.
He's writing messages to his daughter and holding them up. to the stands. It'd be so much fun.
The Nuggets are going to be fascinating. We'll have our friend Ryan Blackburn on soon enough too, because it is going to come along faster than people think. And by the way, the Avalanche in a little over a week will have their rookie camp. I mean, that's coming up quick too. So it's a great time to.
Yeah, we are actually today.
Today
we are 1 month, 30 days away from the opening of the regular season for the Avs. They'll be on the road down at T-Mobile taking on the Golden Knights.
Yeah, so it comes close, but yeah, good to get the deal done.
Yeah, they got
with the thing with Jamal Murray. I get it. I think Murray is probably a little overpaid in that case, but then again, it's what it is. What it is. This is the best thing the Nuggets could do with that money, and just get it done. Make everybody signed. And move on with it, because that's the right choice. And we'll find out. I'm less concerned about Jamal Murray, who I hope is better, but I'm more concerned about how it works with Russell Westbrook, who, by the way, give Westbrook credit. The idea that Christian Brown didn't give up the 0. Westbrook went on his social media and said that 1, he didn't even ask.
He didn't even ask.
2, he wanted to change to 4 because it was he wanted to change to a different number for a different stage in his career, and then made it very obvious that he wanted to pump up Christian Brown. Said, me and CB are getting ready, to dominate out there. And I will say this: if Russell Westbrook can get behind being the 6th man, if he can, the ceiling for the Nuggets does change, and because they had no scoring off the bench last year, and you can let Westbrook, you can hand him the keys and say, do what you want.
Yeah,
charge that
I'm still not convinced that maybe he's not that CB is not actually the one coming off the bench. But
I think
we'll
he'd
see.
be better. I think he'd be better suited there.
That's what I think. That's what I think.
I don't think Christian Brown should be starting. I'd rather have him come off the bench. But
yeah, I'd rather have him be a spark coming off the bench. Before we put a bow on this program, pun intended. Any final thoughts on the Broncos game?
Yeah, well, let's see. The Broncos, the Buffaloes, Air Force. It was a bad football weekend.
It was a really bad football weekend.
The Colorado State Rams won, but it probably doesn't feel like it. And the Torrey Horton got hurt on top of that. So basically, I'm just happy it's this week, and last week is over. The Broncos home opener is coming up. I think that I was underwhelmed. Even with my expectations low, I was underwhelmed with Bo Nix's performance, though I don't put much stock in it as a rookie. My question, already one game in, is what is Sean Payton's plan? Because it didn't seem to make a lot of sense in this game. And for a guy that has won as many games, he's number 20 in NFL history for regular season wins. I expected a better game plan. I expected more flexibility. I expected more change based on the reality of the situation in game. And I didn't see it. And I'm a little concerned when I see Bo Nix go off script and have his best time, when that's when Russell Wilson did best too. That's concerning to me.
Well, I'm just looking forward to a home game. And that's the first time that I've said that about this team. Is it going to bother you
if you get Justin Fields instead of Russell Wilson?
No, not at all. I don't care.
Yeah.
I believed that Justin Fields was going to be starting for the Steelers by the time we got to like week 5 or 6 anyway.
Russ is inactive, but wearing full pads on the sideline.
Yes. You got to look the part, Sean.
I guess
you gotta carry that with you.
Here's the thing. Russell Wilson's actually a nice guy.
Yes, he is.
You don't have to have everyone look at you all the time. It's okay. It's okay.
I don't think he understands that.
You won't like vanish if nobody's paying attention.
I don't think he gets that.
Yeah.
I don't think he understands.
If you're actually hurt, like wear less pads and things you have to carry around, and like sit up in the booth and get off your leg and chow down on the catering. I don't know.
That I mean, have an extra brownie.
Yeah,
you don't have to play.
Yeah, get your quarterback. You can look at Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you can do that. Your quarterback.
You can totally do that.
Fine. I'm like, enjoy, man. Russ,
you can have a gut.
Take a cue from Aaron Rodgers is playing tonight. Relax. Get better. It's fine. You already got your revenge. The Broncos pay you $38 million to go play for the other team. It's fine.
I know.
We'll see how it goes this week. Thanks to Troy Renck for joining us. Cody Rourke will join us tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Well, thanks to Danny Bailey. He's the man that makes all of it work. Even though you don't see him, I'm pointing at you, but I'm really pointing at Danny because he's also the guy right in front of us. Everything you see and everything you hear, he's the guy that makes all of it happen. So appreciate it. And Danny being there, and we appreciate you. However you're consuming the show, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on My Life Sports Radio, however you're doing that, thanks so much. Click and subscribe. You know the drill. We'll be back at it tomorrow. He's Nate Lundy. I'm Sean Drotar. This is Mile High Sports.